Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Baker Reviews, and welcome to my review of Joker Folie Deux. Now, for context, I'm a big fan of the first movie. Even though I admit it's less of a true Joker origin story and more of a taxi driver meets the king of comedy, it still ended up being a very rare rated R film that managed to make $1 billion in the box office and even led to some Oscar wins, including a very well-deserved Best Lead performance by Joaquin Phoenix. And where the first Joker was really focused on the mental illness, isolation, and the system failing these people that desperately need professional help, the sequel feels more like a commentary on how media perpetuates violence through sensationalism. Like, if you remember back in 2019 when the first Joker came out, a lot of major news media outlets were strongly against the film and strangely tried to spin it in a way that could almost inspire psychopaths, predicting it would lead to a ton of mass shootings in America, which of course never happened. Guys, don't watch mainstream media. But anyway, the sequel revolves around the persona of the Joker almost becoming too much for Arthur to handle. It asks the question, who is this man behind the makeup? Is he inherently violent by nature, or is he just a mentally sick person that finally snapped after a cold society literally beat him down and forgot about him? How much is Arthur to blame? And how much falls on the system that failed him? This movie takes place 2 years after the events of the first, and it's basically a 60-40 split between Arthur and Arkham Asylum, being used as a circus clown for the amusement of the guards, and a courtroom drama rehashing the events that led to this point. Lady Gaga as Lee Quinzel is a fellow inmate at Arkham who is a huge admirer of Arthur's work. And guys, this was a strange movie. To be honest, it feels like a sort of course correction that wasn't really needed. It felt like it was made more for all the people who hated the first Joker as opposed to the fans of that movie, which is a bold strategy.
Bad idea.
Now, they had about 4 times the budget to work with this time around, and as I feared, that actually hurt the final product. The story that was so impactful in the first is sacrificed in the sequel at the altar of a more visually dazzling movie. It just feels like it was made with no real narrative purpose, just feeling kind of aimless. Like, every time there's potential for a big moment, it cuts away for a musical number, killing all the momentum it had built up. Now, if you enjoyed this movie, don't let me rain on your parade. There are a few things I enjoyed, so let's start with some of the positives. Now, first and foremost, there are some great performances here across the board. Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, and even Brandon Gleeson as the security guard at Arkham all give 10 out of 10 performances. Joaquin Phoenix picked up right where he left off with the first Joker, and all of the performances here are very solid. I also appreciate that they went bold when they could have made a much simpler sequel. Now, do I think this would have worked better as a more traditional sequel? Absolutely I do. But still, I have to give kudos. I always appreciate when a director and a team try something bold. But similar to a sequel like Halloween Ends, it just didn't pay off in its execution. There is one returning character here, Gary, in a courtroom scene that was actually very effective and kind of let you see the impact and trauma caused by Arthur's violence from an outside perspective. I think Gary up on that stand may have been my favorite moment in this entire movie. And finally, now say what you will about the rest of the movie, and trust me, I have plenty to say, but nobody can dispute the fact that this was masterfully directed by Todd Phillips with incredible cinematography. You have some wildly creative shots, you have awesome use of colors, even a fun little animated sequence at the beginning of the movie. But here's the problem. The story is what people will remember 5-10 years from now. They're not going to talk about how pretty your movie looked. You know another movie that looked great? The Last Jedi. My biggest issue is this sequel just had no reason to exist, and it actually hurts the legacy of the first movie by association. Folie Deux takes all the character development from that first movie and just throws it away, reverting him right back to sad Arthur. And so it begs the question, what's the point of all this? Like, by the end of the first movie, Arthur had finally felt like the world was acknowledging him. He had found his people. He felt powerful. With Joker in custody, the logical sequel would have been organizing and breaking out of Arkham and the hellish mayhem to follow. Though it's the more predictable route, that is absolutely the direction they should have took this sequel. This absolutely should have been more of an escape from Arkham type movie. Also, I briefly touched on it, but the big point of contention going into this was, of course, the musical aspect. You have 15 jukebox hits here that takes up almost half of the runtime of this movie, and the musical angle was just a mistake in my opinion. Now, take that with a grain of salt because I'm not the biggest musical fan, but it felt more like a gimmick rather than having anything meaningful to contribute. It almost felt like they did it just to be polarizing, just to get people talking. And I do think this would have been a better movie without the musical aspect. Another thing is this sequel is a lot less violent than the original movie. There really was no shocking Murray Franklin moments in this entire sequel. And listen, I know what I said earlier, but didn't you say media perpetuates violence? Yes, I sure did. But I'm referring to real life violence by real life news media when I say that, not the violence you see in movies and video games. After all,
movies don't create psychos!
Another thing working against Folie Deux is the pacing and dialogue are both a significant step down here. Like, it always surprises me on rewatches how quick that first Joker movie flies by. This is the complete opposite. This movie goes at a sluggish pace. I felt every minute of the runtime, and like I said before, it doesn't help when the narrative is so disjointed and aimless. I really don't know what they were trying to say here, and I'm not sure if they knew what they were trying to say. And this is definitely going to be an unpopular opinion, but the same way I'm kind of getting tired of every Batman universe having Joker be the main bad guy. Guys, I'm also getting a little bit tired of Harley Quinn. I love the character, but it's become oversaturated. It seems like they are reinventing this character every 2 years now and slapping her in every DC project because people like her. And instead of being two broken people in this movie, I do kind of wish they would have made her more of the traditional therapist role, who maybe played a part in helping Arthur break out of Arkham. And then finally, if unlike me, you're still enjoying yourself up to the third act, this ending is gonna piss a lot of people off. And I mean a lot of people. Todd Phillips even admitted that the ending of this movie is very divisive, it's very polarizing, and he wasn't lying, guys. Even people that are on board up till like the last 10 minutes, it's gonna turn a lot of people off. And the thing is, there are a few twists and turns in this movie, but the problem is, none of them were very good. Like, instead of thinking, oh shit, I did not see that coming, it was more like, really? That's what you decided to do? Really? But overall, guys, I would say that this is a sequel that doesn't justify its own existence. It was only made because the first movie did so well that they literally threw money at Todd Phillips to make a sequel, and I can't blame him for taking the money. But it's also a movie in hindsight that unfortunately makes that first Joker that I love so much a little bit worse. The most puzzling thing is, I'm not sure who this was even made for, because it definitely wasn't the fans of the first movie. To me, it just felt like they took an existing property and said, let's put Lady Gaga in this because reasons. So I guess if you're a big fan of musicals and Lady Gaga, this is your movie. That being said, I'll give it a few points just for the stellar performances, the artful directing, and the creativity of the cinematography. Joker Folie Deux, unfortunately, is going to get a 4 out of 10. If you saw it this weekend, let me know what you thought of it. Hopefully you enjoyed it more than I did, but I'm definitely excited to talk about it. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.